Genesis chapter 27, as Brother Dan mentioned. We are looking at the family of Isaac. And just quickly, God called Abraham out of Ur of Chaldee with a promise that he would make of him a great nation, and that he would lead him to a land of promise, a land for him and his descendants. The scriptures say that Abraham looked for a city which he never found. That city is yet to come, the New Jerusalem, I believe. But this same promise that was given to Abraham was passed down the line to Isaac. And again, tradition is the firstborn receives the inheritance, the promise. Isaac was not the firstborn, Ishmael was, but it was granted, it was God's purpose that Isaac would be the one to receive that promise. And then again, as we studied last week, as we look at Isaac and his sons, it was prophesied it was given to Rebekah that it would actually be the second-born that would receive the promise in his lineage also. And that's in 25 and 23. In fact, just real quickly as an introduction, we'll read 21 through 23. And Isaac entreated the Lord for his wife, because she was barren. And the Lord was entreated of him, and Rebekah, his wife, conceived. The children struggled together within her, and she said, "If it be so, why am I thus?" And she went to inquire of the Lord. And the Lord said unto her, "Two nations are in thy womb, and two manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger." And this was the promise that was given to Rebekah, which was concerning Esau, the firstborn, and Jacob, who was the secondborn. Description of birth, Jacob clinging to his heel, to Esau's heel. Anyway, there's a lot there. We did cover it. I don't want to spend a lot of time this morning going through that. So we are in Genesis chapter 27 this morning. The title lesson is Esau and Jacob. The text is Genesis 27 through 29, 3 chapters. We'll see how far we get. The key verse Brother Robinson identifies is Genesis 27:41. And Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, "The days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then will I slay my brother Jacob." The application, the student will accept the overriding providence of God. And I think that's probably the biggest application for us in our lives. We have our own ideas. We have our own will. We have our own, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And you can see that that's prevalent throughout this lesson. We saw that it was problematic it was a little bit different with Abraham and Sarah. God promised them a son even though Sarah was barren. They believed God, but they thought they had to help God. And too often times we do that. We'll trust God to a certain extent, but we believe we need to get in there and help God. That's where Ishmael came from. Sarah gave Hagar, her handmaid, to Abraham, from which Ishmael was born. He was not the son of promise, although he was the eldest, and the birthright was that of Isaac's, as declared by God. 25 years later, Isaac was born. Okay? Or 25 years after the promise. About 14 or so years after Ishmael was born, Isaac was born, fulfilling God's promise. But things got murky from Sarah and Abraham trying to help out. We'll see this morning that promise that was given to Rebekah was a promise that it wouldn't be the eldest, but the next oldest that would actually receive the promise. And we find here, beginning in chapter 27, that they're not, everybody's doing their own thing, trying to seek their own will instead of that of God's, trying to help God in their own way. That said, and I think I've murked that up pretty well. So let's go ahead and get started. Chapter 27, and let's read down through verse 4. If somebody would read that.
And it came to pass that when Isaac was old, and his eyes became dim, so that he could not see, he called Esau, his eldest son, and said to him, I am the son, and said unto him, Behold, here I am. And he said, Behold, now I am old, and I know the day of my death. Now therefore take, I pray thee, the weapon, the quiver and the bow, and go out into the field, and take me some venison, and make me savory stew, meat such as I love, and bring it to me, and I may eat, that my soul may bless thee before I die.
Okay. So as we look at these verses, beginning verse 1, it came to pass that when Isaac was old. How old was he? I looked through and I didn't see anywhere where the scriptures indicated his age. I did read where it was stated that he was 137 years old at this time. That's pretty old. That's more than double my age, and I'm considered ancient by some. So that's pretty old. He was old, and his eyes were dimmed. His vision was blurry, gone, to the extent, as we'll see later on in a passage, that he couldn't recognize things before him. He couldn't see. He called Esau, his eldest son, and said unto him, My son. And he said unto him, Behold, here I am. Now, who was the favorite of the two sons, Esau or Jacob, of Isaac? Esau.
Esau was a favorite?
Esau was the favorite son of Isaac. Why? He was the eldest. He was a hunter. And we'll see in this, he's going to make a request here of his son. He liked that he was a hunter. He liked savory meat. I like savory meat. I would like for my son to go get me some savory meat. That was Isaac. He liked the savory meat. Jacob, not so much the hunter. On the other hand, who was Rebekah's favorite? Isaac's wife. Jacob, yeah. This comes into play. In our family situations with your kids, do you have favorites? Well, sometimes we tend to lean more to one than another. When you talk to the kids, it's probably a little more defined than what you believe it might be, or they feel it's anyway. Favorites, who got away with this, that, or the other. We had 7 kids in our family, and it was always a debate as to who got away with the most. All right. Verse 2, and he said, Behold, now I am old, I know not the days of my death. I don't know how much longer I've got to live. 137, so he had already lived a pretty full life, length of days. Verse 3, Now therefore take, I pray thee, thy weapons, thy quiver, thy bow, go out to the field and take me some venison. that he liked. That was one of the things that drew him to Esau. Verse 4, and make me savory meat, such as I love, and bring it to me, that I may eat, that my soul may bless thee before I die. So what's his instruction here to Esau, and what's the reason behind it?
He was going to bestow his blessing on Esau.
That's right. Bring me a meal, and then once I am done eating it, then I will bless you. Now, giving a blessing to his son, was there anything wrong with that? What was Isaac really talking about?
He was really talking about the birthright.
The birthright, the inheritance, and that promise that was given to Abraham, that was passed from Abraham to Isaac, confirmed to Isaac, and was to pass on, according to what we read in chapter 25, was supposed to pass on to whom?
Jacob.
God said it will be the younger, Jacob. Now, did Isaac know that? Who was it spoken to? Rebekah. Isaac may have known it. He may not have known it. And he may have chosen to disregard it. But in either case, in making this promise, did he seek out the will of God? No, he did not. Whether he knew the promise given to Rebekah, whether Rebekah shared that with him or not, he still didn't go to the Lord, didn't identify with the Lord what his will was. Now, what instances should we go to the Lord? All. Same with Isaac. We should seek the Lord's will in all things in our life. The little and the big. So Isaac here was in the wrong. God's will and his prophecy to Rebekah was that the younger would receive that birthright and the blessing. And Isaac was, in his own will, planning to give it to Esau based on these verses. Verse 5, Rebekah, his wife, heard when Isaac spoke to Esau, his son, and Esau went to the field to hunt for venison and to bring it. I don't know if she was eavesdropping or whether she was in that area and just naturally overheard it, but either way, she heard what Isaac had told to Esau, his favorite. She had her favorite. Does this sound dysfunctional? It's a little like some of our families today. She, verse 6, Rebekah, spake unto Jacob her son, saying, Behold, I heard thy father speak unto Esau thy brother, saying, Bring me venison, and make me savory meat, that I may eat and bless thee before the Lord before my death. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice according to that which I command thee. Go now to the flock, and fetch me from thence 2 good kids of the goats, and I will make them savory meat for thy father, such as he loveth. And thou shalt bring it to thy father, that he may eat, and that he may bless thee before his death. Now, chapter 25, who was supposed to receive the promise? Jacob. Isaac was planning to give it to Esau. Rebekah overhears and says, that's Jacob's. So what does she command Jacob to do? That's right. Now, Isaac was looking for meat prepared by Esau in Esau's manner, game. Instead, she instructs Jacob to go get two goats, good kids of the goats, and she would make them savory meat. She knew how to fix it so that it would taste very similar. I assume very similar. We're not told that Isaac's taste buds had gone, but very similar to that is fashioned by Esau. For the purpose of what? Jacob receiving the blessing as God had promised. What was the problem with Deception? The way they went about it. But the ends justify the means, don't they? Don't you hear that over and over again? If that's God's will, then we need to do what we can to bring it about. Does God need me to accomplish his purpose? He does call us to serve him within his will. Don't misunderstand me. But he doesn't do it through deceit and lies. He'll let us know what our piece of that work is. And it might just be setting back and allowing him to work. I don't know what his plan was to overcome the situation. But here we definitely see that Rebekah decides, I'm going to help out. Deceitfully. So her instruction was that he go get the 2 goats, that she'll make the savory meat, and he'll bring it to the father that he can eat and give the blessing to Jacob. What's the problem with that? Well, when you go further, verse 11, Jacob said to Rebekah, his mother, behold, Esau, my brother, is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man. Well, that's a problem. My father, peradventure, will feel me, and I shall seem to him as deceiver, and I shall bring, instead of a blessing, a curse upon me, and not a blessing. And his mother said unto him, seemed like she'd been around this, she'd done this before. She had answers here. His mother said unto him, upon me be the curse, my son, only obey my voice, and go fetch me them. And he went and fetched and brought them to his mother, and his mother made savory meat, such as his father loved. So we're partway there. Verse 15, and Rebekah took goodly raiment of her eldest son Esau, which were with her in the house, and put them upon Jacob, her younger son. What was this for? It was to deceive him. Why the raiment? Why the... Yeah, now this was the clothes. Clothes pick up smells, don't they? Esau had a distinct aroma to him, I'm sure, and so did Jacob. You know, it wasn't polo or, but it was a unique aroma. It was probably toilette du dead animal or something. I don't know. But it was a distinct aroma. She's covering all the bases. Now, it was mentioned, the hairy goes on and say, goodly raiment in verse 15, verse 16, and she put the skins of the kids of the goats upon his hands and upon the smooth of his neck. So, down here where if Isaac decided to touch him, he would feel the hairy, which was Esau, and upon the neck also. I make comments, but I won't. Yeah, upon the smooth of the neck. Verse 17, and she gave the savory meat and the bread, which she had prepared, into the hand of her son Jacob. Now, where is Jacob in all of this? He was concerned, wasn't he? He expressed, Jacob said in verse 11, behold, Esau my brother is a hairy man, and I'm a smooth man. My father peradventure will feel me, and I shall seem to him as a deceiver, and I shall bring his a curse upon me, and not a blessing. How did Jacob feel? He was apprehensive. Why? It was a lie, but he was afraid he would get caught. His name meant trickster, supplanter, trickster. And so he's fulfilling that name. She gave him the savory meat, verse 17, and the bread, put it in his hands, verse 18, and he came unto his father and said, my father, and he said, Here am I. Who art thou, my son? So, unusual, but being an older man, his hearing was going a little bit, it seemed. At least he didn't his eyesight definitely was bad, spoken of. He does recognize, let me back up and rephrase this. The voice is not recognizable as Esau's. Okay? That's probably the best way for me to state that. Verse 19, and Jacob said unto his father, I am Esau, thy firstborn. Now, much deception going on here. Some of this is partial falsehoods, which are falsehoods. A white lie is a lie. Leaving out a piece of the truth is a lie. I know that that's not what's taught today, but it's true. Situational lying is lying, and it's a sin against God. We want to redefine, but as we spoke a few weeks ago, God defines what's right and what's wrong and what's sin. And it doesn't matter how we try to redefine it or the world tries to redefine it. Sin is sin. Has been from the beginning and will be until he returns again. All right. So he says here, I am Esau, thy firstborn. I have done according as thou badest me. He didn't bade Jacob. He instructed Esau to do it. Arise, I pray thee, sit and eat of my venison, that thy soul may bless me. Verse 20, and Isaac said unto his son, how is it that thou hast found it so quickly, my son? What's his response?
The Lord brought it to me.
The Lord brought it to me. Now, it's bad enough when we deceive, when we lie, when we trick, but what has he done here? That's right. That's right. We need to be careful when we claim that the Lord is the one behind this or that. I hear that oftentimes. So someone loses a loved one. Well, I don't know why the Lord took it. Well, it could have been the choices that they made that led to it. As spoken before, you get in the car with someone who's drunk, driving, you put your hands at risk. You put your life under their capacitated challenge of driving that car. If they hit something, then whose fault is it? Is it God's? Choices in our life impact. Anyway, the bottom line is we have to be careful invoking the name of God. Here, because the Lord thy God brought it to me, is that true? No. Rebekah instructed Jacob to go out and get. It wasn't even the meat that Isaac had asked for in the first place. Verse 21, and Isaac said unto Jacob, come near, I pray thee, that I may feel thee, my son, whether thou be my very son Esau or not. So clearly, Jacob's concern earlier, turns out, he wanted to touch him and feel. There was a certain feel to Esau. Jacob went near, verse 22, unto Isaac his father, and he felt him and said, the voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau. And he discerned him not, because his hands were hairy as his brother Esau's hands, so he blessed him. And he said, art thou my very son Esau? And he said, I am. There's nothing like repeating the lies multiple times. Verse 25, and he said, bring it near to me, and I will eat of my son's venison, that my soul may bless thee. And he brought it near to him, and he did eat, and he brought him wine, and he drank. And his father Isaac said unto him, come near now, and kiss me, my son. And he came near and kissed him, and he smelled the smell of his raiment, and blessed him. He smelled the smell of his raiment, It was that smell of Esau from the clothing that Rebekah had gotten for Jacob to wear. He said, middle of 27, see, the smell of my son is as the smell of a field, which the Lord hath blessed. Therefore, God give thee of the dew of heaven, and this is the blessing. God give thee of the dew of heaven, and the fatness of the earth, and plenty of corn and wine. Let people serve thee, and nations bow down to thee. Be Lord over thy brethren, and let thy mother's sons bow down to thee. Cursed be every one that curseth thee, and blessed be he that blesseth thee. So, what's he giving to Jacob here, thinking that it's Esau? It is the birthright. It's the inheritance. It is that leadership and lineage of the family through Jacob as opposed to Esau. And again, that was what God had told Rebekah from the very beginning. But again, the means were deceitful, and they were wrong. As we go on, verse 30, we'll see that there's consequences to deceit. Despite the end result that we see here in the blessing. Verse 30, and it came to pass as soon as Isaac had made an end of blessing Jacob, and Jacob was yet scarce gone out from the presence of Isaac his father, that Esau his brother came in from his hunting. In other words, they just barely got this pulled off by the time Esau got back and was cooking up his savory meat. Verse 31, and he also had made savory meat, and brought it unto his father, and said unto his father, let my father arise and eat of his son's venison, that thy soul may bless thee, may bless me. And Isaac his father said unto him, who art thou? And he said, I am thy son, thy firstborn son. Now, Esau is unaware of anything that's gone on. Isaac thinks he's already accomplished what he had instructed. What's the response? Verse 33, and Isaac trembled very exceedingly. In other words, he was uncontrollably shaken. And he said, who? Where is he that hath taken venison and brought it to me? And I have eaten of all before thou camest, and have blessed him. Yea, and he shall be blessed. So he asks several questions, but then he makes a statement. So he asks, where is the one that was here just before? And then he says about this blessing, yea, and he shall be blessed. What does he mean there?
Can't be undone.
What's done is done. The blessing has already been bestowed, been given, and it can't be undone. Verse 34, and when Esau heard the words of his father, he cried with a great and exceeding bitter cry, and said unto his father, bless me, even me also, O my father. Now, let's go back a few years. Esau is out hunting. He comes in famished. He sees that Jacob is making what I would term stew, pottage, whatever. What happened in that situation?
Esau said, I'm hungry, give me something to eat. And he said, no. He said, you're going to have to give me something for it.
Yeah, and that something was.
The birthright.
Now, this is sometime later. Do you think Esau had forgotten that? I don't know. Because as we go on, he'll say, it's the second time. So, I think that Esau was fully aware, knew, and was still expecting to receive. Did Isaac know about that encounter? There's nothing that says that he did. But Esau certainly, I think, was aware.
Obviously he didn't believe it, because when he had tricked him, he's like devastated.
Yeah. Have you ever done something like that? Maybe you gave up something and, man, you regret it for years on end. Maybe you even think, well, they'll forget about it, and it won't come back to me. And down the road it does. Some way, somehow, our shenanigans tend to come back to us. Those things that we do. It always amazed me how my parents found out about the things that I was guilty of. They didn't have to be home. They could be busy doing something else, and they would find out. Now, I attributed most of that to my older sister. If there's more than one child in a family, one of them's a tattletale. I don't know if you recognize that. You know, you're sort of one of them. Sometimes it could be multiple.
If I ever did something wrong, the dude beat me home.
Oh, yeah.
They knew about it before I got home.
And that's before cell phones. Well, anyway, that was sort of a divergence, I guess. Verse 35, and he said, thy brother, this is Isaac, and he said, thy brother came with subtlety and hath taken away thy blessing. Clearly, Isaac has figured it out. He recognizes that that voice that sounded like Jacob, sure enough, was Jacob, and he had tricked him. Verse 36, and he said, is not he rightly named Jacob? Now, again, what does Jacob mean? Supplanter. Supplanter. For he hath supplanted me these 2 times, and that's the indication that he realized, he remembered, he did it to me before. Fool me once, fool me twice. Well, Jacob was well on his way. This was the 2nd time. He hath supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright. And behold, now he hath taken away my blessing. And he said, hast thou not reserved a blessing for me? What's he saying?
Isn't there anything left?
Yes.
I got to have something.
I can't walk away empty-handed. I also need a blessing. Verse 37, and Isaac answered and said unto Esau, behold, I have made him thy Lord. What's that mean?
He's over him now.
He's over him now. And all his brethren have I given to him for servants. And with corn and wine have I sustained him. And what shall I do now unto thee, my son? And Esau said unto his father, hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. You know, that birthright that he had disdained to the point of trading it off for a plate of food, didn't seem very important back then. How important did it seem now? Verse 39, and Isaac his father answered and said unto him, behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of the heaven from above. And by thy sword shalt thou live, and shalt serve thy brother. And it shall come to pass, when thou shalt have dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. So, what is the blessing that's given by Isaac to Esau?
You have to fight it for what he's got.
Yeah.
He said, you're going to serve your brother,
Yep.
but as soon as you're strong enough, he'll break away.
Yeah. Who are the descendants of Esau? Edomites.
Harry.
Yeah, that's right. Certainly Edom was subject under Israel for many, many, many years. But that promise was true. So, verse 40, by thy sword shalt thou live. They'd have to fight to survive. And you'll serve your brother, Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel. They would serve the Israelites. And it shall come to pass when thou shalt have the dominion. There will be a time when they will break that yoke, that subjection from off their neck. That was the promise that's given to Esau here. All right. Any comments or questions so far? All right. We got a lot more to go. We're actually covering over 20 years here in these 3 chapters. Verse 41, and Esau hated Jacob. What's the result of deception? Now, there was certainly problems already. There was friction there, but clearly Esau hated Jacob. The Old Testament command was, thou shalt not kill. What's the New Testament in speaking of murder? What did Jesus give in the Sermon on the Mount? Yeah. To even hate your brother is the same as murder. Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. He hated him enough, it didn't stop there. And Esau said in his heart, the days of mourning for my father are at hand. He's going to die soon. He's going to die. He might have, well, he probably didn't say this to Jacob. But it would have been a thing of, you just wait. As soon as Dad's gone, I'm going to get you. Did that ever happen? You just wait till Mom and Dad's gone. You told on me. You got me in trouble, and you're going to pay a price. The days of mourning for my father at hand, then will I slay my brother Jacob. Verse 42, and these words of Esau, her elder son, were told to Rebekah. And she sent and called Jacob, her younger son, and said unto him, behold, thy brother Esau is touching thee, doth comfort himself, proposing to kill thee. In other words, he's making himself feel better because his plan is to get rid of you. So, again, this stuff comes back to Mom and Dad. And certainly, us before God, and too oftentimes, we're not that dissimilar in our attitudes. And we fail to remember that God knows. God sees our hearts. He knows the lies and deceit. And He knows what our attitudes are toward, what our thought processes are. Verse 43, now therefore, and here's our instruction. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice. We've been down this path before. Obey my voice. Do as I say, go get 2 goats. Here, obey my voice, arise, flee thou to Laban, my brother, to Haran, and tarry with him a few days. Now, here, what was Rebekah's intent? That Jacob would be gone? Just a few days. Esau will be fine in a few days, and you'll be right back. Well, how long was Jacob away from the family?
14 years.
Actually, closer to 20 years. Because he had worked 7 for, and we're jumping ahead, but he worked 7 years for who he thought was Rachel. Wound up getting Leah. Had to work another 7 years for Rachel. And then he had to work for what? Cattle. Yeah. He went up there owning really nothing. And so in his time there, he worked basically for room and board and for a wife. And so at the end of 14 years, after gaining 2 wives, and this is, no, I probably shouldn't go down that path. After being married for 14 years with 2 wives, what do you got? Nothing. Okay. 2 wives, yes, is problems. 2 wives is problems. That was his problem. So he had to work additional years to obtain substance so that he could go back. All right. So her thought, tarry with him, Laban, her brother, until my brother's fury, thy brother's, Esau's fury, turn away. Verse 45, until thy brother's anger turn away from thee, and he forget that which thou hast done to him. Then I will send and fetch thee from thence. Why should I be deprived also of you both in one day? Why should I lose both of you? Well, if Esau killed Jacob, what was going to happen to Esau?
They were going to have to kill him.
Yeah. Verse 46, Rebekah said to Isaac, I am weary of my life because of the daughters of Heth. Who are the daughters of Heth? Where do they come into play? Esau's wives. So here's the problem that Isaac had in choosing Esau. Number one, the birthright was no longer his. It had been promised to Jacob by God. So it was God's will that it be Jacob's. In addition to that, Abraham had sent, let me back up. Abraham had gotten a wife for Isaac from where?
Her brother.
Her brother. Yes. What was the instruction to Abraham? Don't marry these people of the land, the Canaanites, but go to thy kin and marry there. And that's the same instruction that Rebekah is giving to Jacob for a different reason. But when she talks to Isaac about it, what's the reason for sending Jacob away?
Because of what you did to your brother.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and Esau had married these two daughters of Heth, which were from where?
Canaan.
Canaan. Yeah, they were Canaanites. And, well, it gives us more information here. Because of the daughters of Heth, in other words, Rebekah's saying, these daughter-in-laws that I've got are a mess. We don't have those today. We have great daughter-in-laws. And, but they had problems. If Jacob take a wife of the daughters of Heth, such as these, which are of the daughters of the land, what good shall my life do me? No, I won't come. So, chapter 28. And Isaac called Jacob, and blessed him, and charged him, and said unto him, Thou shalt not take a wife of the daughters of Canaan. Arise, go to Padan-aram, to the house of Bethuel, thy mother's father, and take thee a wife from thence of the daughters of Laban, thy mother's brother. And God Almighty bless thee, and make thee fruitful, and multiply thee, that thou mayest be a multitude of people, and give thee the blessing of Abraham to thee, and to thy seed with thee, that thou mayest inherit the land wherein thou art a stranger, which God gave unto Abraham. So, here, after Rebekah talks to Isaac, what's he instruct Jacob, and what does he tell him in sending him? Yeah. Don't take a wife here of the Canaanites, but go to Haran, Padan-aram, Mesopotamia, which it was later known, to the house of Bethuel. Bethuel was the son of Nahor, which was the brother of Abraham. And Bethuel was the father of Laban. And he instructs him, take a wife from thence of the daughters of Laban, thy mother's brother. And he reiterates the blessing that he had already given. God Almighty bless thee, and make thee fruitful, and multiply thee, that thou mayest be a multitude of people. Give thee the blessing of Abraham to thee, and to thy seed with thee, that thou mayest inherit the land wherein thou art a stranger, which God gave unto Abraham. So, again, he's reiterating the blessing of God, that covenant of God, given to Jacob, not to Esau. Verse 5, and Isaac sent away Jacob, and he went to Padan-aram. I love saying Padan-aram, I don't know why. Unto Laban, the son of Bethuel, the Syrian. Now, Syrian was really Mesopotamian. It was not the same as Syria as we think of today. The brother of Rebekah, Jacob's and Esau's mother. These family lines, if you ever have gone back in your own, trying to keep them separated, who's who, when we have our family reunions, it's a challenge. And certainly here, it's a bit of a challenge. Verse 6, and please jump in If you've got thoughts to add, applications, or even questions, for sure, jump in with them. Verse 6, when Esau saw that Isaac had blessed Jacob and sent him away to Padanaram to take him a wife from thence, and that as he blessed him, he gave him a charge, saying, thou shalt not take a wife of the daughters of Canaan, and that Jacob obeyed his father and his mother and was gone to Padanaram, and Esau, seeing that the daughters of Canaan pleased not Isaac his father. Are you getting a sort of a picture here? Verse 9, then went Esau unto Ishmael, and took unto the wives which he had, Mahalath, the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son, the sister of Nebajoth, to be his wife. All right, so what's Esau doing and why? He's
very spiteful.
spiteful. Took another wife. Yes, from Ishmael, of the daughters of Ishmael. Now, Ishmael is the half-brother? Step-brother? Half-brother. Okay. Half-brother of Isaac.
Abraham.
I'm sorry. No, of Isaac. Both of them are sons of Abraham. All right. Maybe that would have been the easiest way for me to say it. Anyway. Esau sees Jacob instructing, Isaac instructing Jacob to go and marry within the family. Not the pagans that lived around, which Esau had done. And he not just married, but he had married two. Now, that was acceptable among the customs of the land.
But not God.
But it's never been acceptable to God. Never ever, even though it occurred in the United States. And I think it still occurs in the United States. Yeah, in places. It's outlawed. It's illegal in all the states now. But that was never God's plan. What was God's plan? One man, one woman. So polygamy is not acceptable to God. One man, one woman, when you bring it right down to it, divorce, except in certain cases, is the same. And so, we have to be careful. This is one thing and that's another, and we say this is okay and that's not. Well, they really are very similar. May not be multiple at the same time. Anyway, we have to be careful. We tend to look on, especially as prevalent as divorce is today, and it's just acceptable to us. But all right, well, he already had two wives. I think he thought he would get in good with mom and dad if he went and married a daughter of Ishmael. Yeah, it was in the family. And Rebecca complained about those daughters of Heth. I don't know if they were lazy or part of it was that deceit to send Jacob off and to give reason behind it. All right, verse 10. And Jacob went out from Beersheba and went toward Haran. And again, this is a lengthy travel, round trip. I think it was somewhere around 900 miles. And so you're really talking about a month to travel. Verse 11, and he lighted upon a certain place and tarried there all night, because the sun was set. And he took the stones of that place and put them for his pillows, and lay down in that place to sleep. And he dreamed, and behold, a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven, and behold, the angels of God as ascending and descending on it. And behold, the Lord stood above it, and said, I am the Lord God of Abraham thy father, and the God of Isaac. The land whereon thou liest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed. And thy seed shall be as the dust of the earth, and thou shalt spread abroad to the west, and to the east, to the north, to the south. And in thee and in thy seed shall all the families of the earth be blessed. And behold, I am with thee, and will keep thee in all places whither thou goest, and will bring thee again unto this land, for I will not leave thee until I have done that which I have spoken to thee of. Now, Jacob had already received the blessing of his father, the birthright. Here we see Jacob beginning his travels. I think someone indicated this was about the third day. The travel from Beersheba to what he called here Bethel, previously called Luz, was about a 3-day journey. And so would have been approximately the third night. He came to a stopping place because it was getting dark. He took and piled the stones. That sounds really comfortable to me. And put them for his pillows and lay down in that place to sleep. And then, verse 12, he dreamed, and behold, a ladder set up on the earth. And the top of it reached the heaven. And he begins to describe this dream. Now, I had a dream last night. It wasn't from the Lord. Probably, whether you remember it or not, you probably had a dream last night, or the night before, or whatever. What's different about this dream versus those that we oftentimes have? Yeah, keeping in mind that the Lord led Old Testament people in many different ways, speaking audibly, through signs, through examples, through dreams and visions. And the Old Testament talks about it in many different places. Why? Why did he deal in the Old Testament in that manner as opposed to how does he deal with us today? Yeah. Yeah, we have his Word, the Bible, and his Holy Spirit that work jointly to guide us in our path. These things hadn't been captured, and especially at this time, there was no Old Testament scripture to guide them. And so it was God dealing with them in different ways. And here is through this dream. He dreamed a ladder was set up on the earth, top of it reached to heaven, and behold, the angels of God ascending and descending on it. Do we have any other examples of this? Oh, wow. Time passed it. Yes. John 1:51. And we won't go read it, but it's Jesus speaking to his disciples, Nathanael in particular, and he describes a very similar scene hereafter. And it was after Nathanael trusted and believed him as the Son of God, as the Messiah, and Jesus described a very similar scene. Jesus as that access to heaven. I think this was the Lord. This was the second person of the Godhead here addressing. All right, we're out of time. Anyway, the promises that God had given, it was important that Isaac transfer the birthright and the promises to Jacob. However, what was more important than that? It was God's acknowledgement of those things unto Jacob. And that's here where Jacob receives it. He makes a vow. Summarizing, Jacob goes on. Guess where he meets Rachel? At a well. just like his father had met Rebekah at a well. And there, he's taken back to the family. He loves Rachel and agrees with Laban to work for him for 7 years. Boy, that's hard labor. 7 years for a woman. He gets, instead of Rachel, Rachel's older sister, Laban. So then what does he do? Yeah. Laban says, finish your week honeymoon with Leah, and then you can marry Rachel, but you owe me another 7 years, 14 years. Now, was Jacob wrong in marrying the second, Rachel?
Evidently not, because the lineage went through Joseph, his son back.
It did, but he was already married, wasn't he? He was already married.
He wanted what he wanted.
He wanted what he wanted.
And you know, this may be grasping at straws or whatever, but she didn't like her daughter-in-laws, but it wasn't maybe because they were bad girls or they weren't like them.
They weren't like them. It is noted that they were idol worshippers. And
Right, and that makes a difference when you're
Yeah.
looking for a spouse.
yes, and in fact, when it comes to forbiddance of marriage, that's really the key. We use social status, we use all kinds of different things to say, well, you shouldn't marry this person or that person or the other person. In reality, the thing that is forbidden is for us to marry unequally yoked. And that's talking about Christians and non-Christians. That's really the focus of that for Old Testament and New Testament, Israel and for Christians